I don't know why Jano's not in here, and I'm not really. He'll get in here when he's ready. You know what I want to try? I want to try this new camera and see how. Well, that's you and your beautiful self, and I've got something else that I wanted to try. Oh, there it is. So we can kind of see both of us at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You know, and I'm going to experiment with this a little bit and move it around. Because now that I look at myself from the side, this is not the most flattering picture of me. In fact, I look like Mike Ditka before he was on Nutrisystem. I got to start the show. Okay. I can't find the video. I can't find anything. Mike Ditka.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
That was funny.
Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I am your host, Joe Abbate. Thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you, Susie, for helping me put the show together today.
You're welcome.
We could talk about it right now, I suppose. Your viewer appreciation. You got anything going on tonight with that?
Oh, yeah. We're giving away a nice decal, VMXQ&A decal.
No, those are going to be for our What's It Worth segment if they get the answer right.
Okay. This is
Yeah, that's the viewer appreciation.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We're giving away groups, custom petty products.
All right.
Compliments of.
All right.
.org.
Is it? No, I think it's .com.
Oh.
Anyway, enough of that for now. Yeah, you want one more shot of this? The Ditka shot? There it is from the side. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors who help out with the show. That would be including Vinco, Motion Pro, Preston Petty Products, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, Racer X, the International Motocross Museum, Full Circle Racing, and of course our good friends George Ackerman at the Moto Barn and Mike Chamberlain. Don't forget Derf Cycle. He'll do what other people won't. They're out there in Missouri. Fred Hudgens. Get a hold of him at Derf Cycle, or their email is papafred341@gmail.com. Thank you, Sean Gomes. Keep sharing the show wherever you are, always mentioning Vintage Motocross Q&A. We appreciate everything that Fast Guy Stuff does for us. If you want to make a contribution to the show, just go over to PayPal. And we have a page there. Actually, you know what? I don't know why I said that. We have this, which is our QR code, which you could scan, and you can go directly to that. And we also have a donation page. I'll put that up on the I'll put that up on our Facebook page tomorrow. The donation page.
Where do they find the QR code?
The QR code is on the Facebook page too. I mean, it looks like this, if you can remember what that looks like, but I don't think you can. So I'll put both of those things up tomorrow on the Vintage Motocross Q&A page. And also, while you're over there, if you want to become a sponsor of the show, get a hold of me, and we'll be happy to get your name up on the board, much like Vinco, Motion Pro, so many other people that have been with us over the past 4 years. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. Share the show, whether you're on Facebook or you are on YouTube. Mention Motion Pro, mention Vinco, any of our sponsors. We would really, really appreciate that, and I'm sure they would as well. Right now, we're going to cut right into the Next Time Try This segment, which is brought to you by Vinco.com. Over 1,000 products in their catalog, Vinco.com. This week's Next Time Try This segment is brought to you by Vinco. Keep the ride going. There are a couple of different ways you can attach number plates to your race bike. Some guys use zip ties. Other people use some kind of rubber strap. I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to use today. It involves pop rivets and a bracket like this. And when you get done, you're going to have a real factory look that looks a lot like this. I've done it with the number plate background on already. If you want to, I would advise They also, after the number plate background, you put your numbers on, or if you have pre-printed backgrounds, put it all on before you do what I'm going to show you right now. What you're going to need are a couple of rivets like this, a rivet gun, like I have here, and of course, a drill. And it's really pretty simple after that. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that the bracket for the number plate is in the center of the plate. Now, you may be putting it on a square plate. You may be putting it on something that's oval. Take some measurements and get it as close to the middle as possible. And of course, equal distance off the sides as well. Take a Sharpie and mark those holes. With a drill bit that is slightly bigger than the rivets, you're going to want to drill those holes. In this case, I used rivets that were 1/4 of an inch in diameter by 7/16 in depth. When you go to a hardware store, you may find a couple of different sizes. Those are the ones that I prefer. They're a little bit bigger. I think they look nicer. Carefully drill right through your number plate and make sure you put something under it to protect your workbench or whatever you're drilling on. In this case, I happen to use styrofoam. After you get your holes drilled, you want to put your rivet through the one side, then put your mounting bracket on the other. In this case, because I had to hold it with one hand, I used the bench as something to hold the other side of my pop rivet gun. Push down on it a couple of times, pop, there you go, the rivet's in. You do the same thing for the second one, and there you have it. A really nice looking bracket that goes across the back of your number plate, and we'll hold it on there securely.
I'm Don Kadowski, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't go anywhere.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
All right, we are back live at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and up next is the Moto Showcase. Actually, up next is the What's It Worth segment, but before I get to that, I want to remind you once again, get over to Vinco.com. They've got rod kits, piston kits, gaskets. They've got something for just about every vintage off-road bike, a lot of OSA parts, just so much there going on at Vinco.com. And as always, with orders over $200, you get free shipping as well. Now, we are going to have the What's It Worth segment tonight. And as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, Susie, do we have a prize tonight for the What's It Worth segment, guys?
Yeah, we have awesome decals.
Stickers.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
yeah, they're really cool.
Are they durable?
They're very durable
How come?
because I made them.
Okay.
They're laminated,
Yeah.
so they're very durable. You can put them on your truck and they'll withstand all kinds of weather.
All right.
Hurricane, tornado, blizzards.
Okay. Very good. You've done an excellent job. We are looking at the Moto Showcase tonight, and in this segment, we are looking at a 1979 Husqvarna. And here's the bike right here. And as Susie said, we want you to type in how much you think this bike recently sold for without going over. Okay? So here's a picture of the bike. Very nice. I found it on, actually, it was on our buyers and sellers price guide page, which Bill Mashell helps out with just tremendously. Anyway, it's a 1979 Husqvarna 390. Absolutely beautiful bike. It was, it certainly was restored, taken down to the frame and back. Everything looks correct about the bike. I love the way they had the gray cables and a lot of nice details in it, including hardware. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the gas tank. It looks like it was a repaint. There are no dents in it. It looks a little different as far as that polished area goes, that knee area. See, from here, it looks a little more authentic than it did from this side, but I'm sure it's just the angle, and it does look pretty nice from there. other things that go along with this bike that really looked well. They had the triple clamps. They look like they have some air caps here on the forks. A nice little period correct touch. The Kickstarter, how the number plates they were, the way they were put on, the pipe was refinished properly. I liked everything I saw about the bike. Here's a great shot. Bottom of the frame. So many bikes that are out there. They do get restored or refurbished, but those bottom rails, after 50 years of abuse, sometimes, well, they're not so pretty, okay? They gave us a pretty nice little list here, too, of everything that they put into the bike. New McGregor-style kill switch, works performance shocks, the original OEM plates. So low hour, fresh top end on the bike, and just a lot of great stuff going on here with this beautiful Husky. Now, this is, of course, the portion of the show where we ask you, the viewers at home, how much do you think this bike recently sold for? $4,500, $5,500, $6,500. Okay, here's how much it actually sold for.
Come on.
$5,600 in plus a 5% buyer's premium. Doing the math quickly in my head, I think that's another $260 or $280. So we're looking at 50, 60, 70, like 58, 60, 50, let's call it 50. I'll tell you what, I'm being generous. Let's call it 5,700.
Oh,
Who got as close as they could to 5,700 without going over?
5,700?
Yeah, it should be 56, but that's all right. Let's call it 57.
57. Vintage mini bike lovers?
Yeah? Vintage mini bike lovers? Vintage mini bike lovers, you got the closest without going over. Get me your name and address, and we will get you some stickers, compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Nice stickers that Susie makes in her spare time. Next up on the show, we've got here's the problem segment. Here's the problem segment is brought to you by Motion Pro. Motion Pro been around for 30 years. Always a favorite when it comes to tools, cables, and controls, and just making some really great stuff that makes your job easier. This week's question comes in from Mike Conley, and this is a good one. Conley's been sending in questions just about every other week, every third week. This one's really, really good. It took me a while to find the answer. Mike Conley Sr., why did Kawasaki stop selling open class KXs after 1976? You're not going to believe it, Mike, but here's the reason why right here. The 1969 Honda CB750. You say, Joe, you have flipped your lid. You're spending too much time in Napa with Lackey drinking wine. How could that have anything to do with why Kawasaki didn't make an open class bike? Well, here's what happened. It was 1969, 1970, and Honda did put out that big 750. What Kawasaki did was they wanted to find a bike that would compete with that, and they cleared off their drawing board pretty much and wanted to make the 1973 Kawasaki Z1900. But there's a little bit more to it than that, and I'm going to read to you what I discovered and what somebody at Kawasaki who was there for over 30 years and had me on the phone last night for nearly an hour. Now, I want to say this. He said, I would appreciate if you don't mention my name. So let me say this. It was not Norm Bigelow. It was not Brian Farnsworth. It was not any of my racer buddies, Lackey or Weiner or anybody like that. It was somebody who had their finger on the pulse of the industry at Kawasaki that told me about what's going on there. Now, by the time the F12 and the F11 were out in 74, they were already obsolete. Yeah, Lackey won a national championship on one, but by the time the 450 rolled out, there wasn't much happening there at all. So, and of course, Honda had a little something called the Elsinore. Kawasaki made tens of thousands of 250KX, 250s, and 400 models in 74 and in 1975. What they didn't have was a good dealer network, certainly not a big one as Yamaha, Suzuki, or of course Honda had. Honda had over 1,100 dealerships throughout the country. Suzuki had about 900. Kawasaki only had 550. They also didn't have the greatest marketing campaign going on. They really didn't have a good relationship with some of the magazines. When Kawasaki heard that Honda had this 750 coming out, they wanted a piece of that. They also wanted a piece of it, and they got it through the H1 750, the H2 500, or it's the other way around, the H1, the H2. Either way, they wanted a piece of that pie. So that stuff was starting to overshadow the KX. So Kawasaki starts chasing the CB750, and they caught it with that Z1900. Interest had dwindled at Kawasaki in the MX area. And the 76 and 75 bikes, there was not much difference, as we all know. The 76 was nothing more than a 75 with black fenders. and a metallic green paint job on it. So things were dwindling down there, and there was no 77 model at all. In fact, by that point, Kawasaki was thinking about getting out of the motocross market altogether. You didn't read this anywhere. You're not going to hear it anywhere. But they were. There was no 77 model. There was no open class bike. The 1978 Kawasaki, this is the 75 here, but the 1978 Kawasaki that was to come out was supposed to come out in 1977. And here's where it really, really gets interesting. The 78, 125, and 250 were supposed to be there for 77. However, Cowie figured at that point, we're making a whole lot more money on Z1s and street bikes. Who needs a motocross bike? What they didn't realize was that they had a mountain of parts left over from 1974 and 75 and 76. Don't forget, Mikuni carburetors, Nippon Denso ignitions, the cranks were outsourced. A lot of the parts for those bikes, including airboxes and some of the seat bases, were stacked up at Kawasaki to the ceiling. They had to get rid of them. Kawasaki said, we're not making any open class bikes till all those parts are gone. We have no 78 bike, so they come out with the 78 and what you see here, the 79 bike. What they had us all believing was that the 78 and 79s were something absolutely spectacular. You've never seen anything like it. It's the closest thing to a works bike you'll ever see. We're only making 1,500 of them. You won't be able to get one. Here's the fact of the matter. You know why there's only 1,500 A4s? Because they only had 1,500 carburetor seats, airboxes, cranks, and everything else to make those bikes. That's why there were 1,500 and 600 sent to America. So in 1980, Kawasaki did come out with a 420. It wasn't the greatest bike in the world, but they hung on in the open class market, and eventually it did catch on. KX 500, you had Jeff Warden there, Mike Kudrowski, Mike LaRocco, Weiner put his time in on these bikes as well, and they really, really hung in there in the motocross market, and we're really, really happy they did. Of course, James Stewart was in there as well. So why was there no open class Kawasaki's from 1976 to 1980? Here's why, right here. The Honda CB 750. And everybody was chasing it, or everybody began to chase this bike, the Z1R. Mike Conley, I want to thank you for sending in such a great question. In fact, Mike, you know what? If you get me your mailing address, I'll get you some stickers that Susie's making up here for Vintage Motocross Q&A. That was an absolutely fabulous question. There are many people who have asked that question over the years, and I finally got to somebody and doing a little research on my own to where we found out what exactly was going on with the open bike at Kawasaki. We are going to take, we're going to take a little break here. We're going to run one more video that our friend Jerry Maddox ran for us or captured for us back in Mid-Ohio last week. And I'm going to run that for a couple of minutes. We're going to take a little bit of a breather here. And we'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A. Please stick around.
Okay, without further ado, let's take a look at these two bikes in action. Let's look at some motocross clips. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed the show, and I really hope you enjoyed that racing action. That was as exciting for me as it was anybody. Don't know if you noticed my son late in the race yelling at me to get out of the way. I'm used to that by now. The other thing, earlier in the show, you might have saw me doing a burnout on an SL70. Yes, that was me. And a close eye would have seen me turning some hot laps on my MR50, formerly named Clunker Jr., in the barrel racing. Vintage Days is an absolute madness party. It's a lifetime adventure. You should come next year because I will certainly be there. Have a great day, folks.
Congratulations to our friend Jerry Maddox. He did win an ARMA National again this year. I think this is his third championship that he has actually won. Also, his son was out there doing a great job as well. After the Here's the Problem segment, I forgot to mention that Motion Pro still has a great special going on. Get over there, and whatever you buy at the end when you check out, use the code MP9135. That's MP9135. You'll get 20% off across the board on everything except custom-made cables. We also have a special going on here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. You can get a t-shirt in black, white, or gray. Actually, you can get them in any color you want. Prices start at just $19.99. We also have them with the big logo across the back. In other words, you'd have this logo across the back, and you'd have these logos across the front, which I cannot mention. But you get the picture. So if you want a shirt like that in any color, and they also come in tanks, tees, long sleeve, and short, as well as hoodies. Yeah, and Susie's coming up with hats and cups and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. The International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 company, and I've got some interesting news coming up on the International Motocross Museum. What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at the International Motocross Museum commercial, and we're going to be right back. We'll have a little something from Ricky Johnson as well. We'll be right back.
I'm Steve Wise. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
And Bob Hanna cutting a works frame in half and a production frame in half, not telling engineering, not telling the factory, and putting it together and going and winning a national with it. These kind of things the current generation is not going to know, and the world needs to know this because they look at motocross and supercross now, it's so glamorous and they're superstars and they're making millions of dollars and they retire without a big injury or whatever, and they go on to do whatever the hell they want because they have the money to live that way. God bless them. I get that. But if you don't preserve and the next generation doesn't appreciate and see and look at what we had to go through to get here, it's just going to be lost. And so what Terry's trying to put together with the millions of dollars that he's invested in bikes, in memorabilia, in just everything, you just all of that, The world needs to see it, and that's why this museum is so damn important.
And there you have it, right from Ricky Johnson. I was on the phone with Terry Good today. There is a major manufacturer, someone, of course, you would definitely know. I'm going to say this. There's a major manufacturer ready to write a check with 2 commas in it. You heard me correctly. There is a major manufacturer out there. They're ready to write a check with 2 commas in it. There'll be another meeting on Friday. I'll have more information for you next week. But we are marching right on as fast as we can with the International Motocross Museum. We do expect those doors to swing open by the mid to the end of summer next year. That's 2025. And your Uncle Joe will be out there yelling for the bulls. What else can I do? And I'll be yelling for the bikes as well. You know what's back this week? Trivia. That's right. Trivia is back this week. And you know why it's back? Because I keep finding books like this. Discovering 6 Days by Keith Geisner. I'm not even going to tell you this is the last one, because every time I do that, I find another one. Anyway, this is it. We've got trivia coming up for you tonight. This is not a call-in segment. I also put a little clue on our Facebook page today. It said you're going to go back and, yeah, that's right. You're going to have to go back there and put on your thinking cap about Swedish motocross pre-1970. So, this is for the book. Don't call in. You have to type in the correct answer. And we may take a moment because I want to make sure we get the right person, not saying one name. Meanwhile, we take a look at it and somebody else was there before. Okay? So here's the question. The first person to type in the answer. Here it is. Who was the last rider to win a Grand Prix on a Lido? Who was the last rider to win a Grand Prix on a Lido? If you can answer that, you get a book, compliments of Keith Geisner, Discovering 6 Days. The Moto Showcase is up next, and I'll let Susie keep looking at the comments. And when she does that, well, hopefully we'll get an answer, and we will get a winner as well. We have a winner already? Okay, hang on a second. Looks like we got a winner. Who is it? First of all, you know the answer.
I do.
And being you know the answer, and I'm going to put you on camera right here. Being you know the answer, did the person get it correct?
Yeah.
They didn't get it by the year, too. I didn't ask him for the year.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No, but Lee Miller.
Lee Miller?
Yes.
Right.
Got the correct answer first.
And the correct answer is, Susie.
Sten London.
There it is, Sten London, 1959. Swedish Grand Prix star Sten London was the last one to win a Grand Prix aboard a Lido. Susie, I want to thank you for that. And if he messages you, let's get Lee, is it?
Lee Miller.
Lee Miller. Lee Miller, thanks for watching the show.
Roof got it too.
Who?
Al Roof.
Al Roof's got a book like this.
Yeah, but he was right after
Okay.
Lee Miller.
Lee Miller.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching the show, playing along, and getting the answer correctly. It was Sten London on the Lido in 1959. Get me your address. I will mail you this book, Discovering 6 Days, that has been given to us by Keith Geisner. Keith Geisner, very, very generous over the years with this and finding number 49 as well. Sten London. Let's get back to the show. We were at the Moto Showcase. Moto Showcase is brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Get over to PrestonPettyProducts.com. Get all of the fenders and plates and all the good stuff that we've loved for all the years from Preston Petty Products. And tonight's Moto Showcase is brought to you. This was a little, I don't want to say it was confusing, but it was a great little segment that Roy Vanderveer, big supporter of the show, Roy sent in this bike, but it was actually sent in to him by someone else. Now, whether or not they don't watch the show or Roy helped them or however it went, it was sent in by a Jimmy LaRocco. Nothing to do with Mike LaRocco. These LaRoccos are from the great city of Philadelphia. And what we have here is this bike right here. This bike should be filed under fulfillment of a dream for Jimmy, as when he was a young teenager, he had a YZ80. After years of riding and racing many other bikes, including KTMs and KXs, it was always the YZ that he loved and felt he had the most fun on. Enter the 1988 YZ250 that he purchased from an employee at Bridgeport Raceway in New Jersey. Jimmy dug deep into his bag of tricks while overhauling this bike to build it as best as he could. He really wanted to make it great. Step one was for Jim to call Kenny Roberts. Yes, that Kenny Roberts. And what Jim wanted from Kenny was some porting techniques that some of the people out here on the West Coast were using for their Banshee engines and what kind of expansion chambers. And what Kenny suggested was that he give his buddy, Ken's buddy, Rob Selvey a call. Rob Selvey was a very respected quad modifier. He was a pipe builder. And if Kenny recommended that that's where he should go, well, that's where Jimmy LaRocco did go. The next step was to get the engine to travel to Ontario, Canada. And while he was working out the details on the rest of the bike, that's when it went out to Selvey. Rob had a plan and knew exactly what he wanted to do when he wanted to rebuild the crank with a longer rod, port the cylinder, put in a fresh bore, as well as so many other things, including a modified head, a key and carburetor, and a whole lot of other stuff was done as well. Then things go bad. He got the engine back and it wouldn't start, and he couldn't figure out what Rob had did. But it did prompt him to give Rob a call. This is where the story really gets sad. The day that he called him, Rob, the guy who had modified the engine, had just passed away. It was a very, very tough phone call to make, and it was the last engine that went out of his shop. This is where our dear friend Roy Vanderveer got involved, and Roy sorted out the problems that were to be. It was an electrical issue. Roy got it all dialed in, and a bunch of other stuff that was wrong with the bike as well. So in the end, he can tell you now that the bike had very linear power. It was faster than any other 250 he had ridden, including his 2024 YZ250. The plan right here is to ride this bike. I absolutely love it. It may not be a works bike, but it is a bike that works for me. And that comes to us from this guy right here, Jimmy LaRocco. Jimmy LaRocco, thank you for sending that in and sharing that through Roy Vanderveer. Roy, thank you so much for all you do for us here at the show and some of the things you've sent in, including some videos, some tips, and so much more. Next up is Did You Know? Did You Know is brought to you by Jeff Kokoski. Jeff does an absolutely wonderful job sending in some very, very interesting stories that have either, well, not necessarily been forgotten, but sometimes they aren't told exactly correctly, or there are some things that go along with that story. So, did you know? Last week we were talking about Marty Moats. There's a good shot of Marty at that famous day at the USGP in California. Anyway, Marty Moats, he won the USGP in 1980, becoming the first American to do so. What was more amazing was that the fact that he beat the world's best on a privateer aboard an LOP-backed Yamaha. But did you know the story of Marty Moats? Marty was born in 56 in El Cajon, a suburb of San Diego. Anyway, of course, San Diego was a hotbed for motocross at that time, with such names as Smith, Croft, Glover, Ward, Ricky Johnson, and Ron Lachine all come in that same area. Although he was talented as a motocross racer, Moats never quite achieved the stardom that some of the other guys did. In the mid-70s, Marty had a pro career, and was also a test rider alongside Bob Hanna at Suzuki. Through the mid to late 70s, Marty would go on to compete at the U.S. Nationals and Supercross and so many other things that he was a part of. Unfortunately, he never got the coveted factory ride. By 79, Marty started a relationship with a new crew at LOP, or LOP, as it is known as, that stood for Lawrence Offner Products. Lawrence Offner, he put together a privateer race team with a bunch of his buddies. They were growing up in Illinois. The owner, Lawrence Offner, had put together this team and got Marty Moats to come on board, and the rest, as we know, is history with the USGP. But there's another little thing that was going on here, and it got kind of crazy. The LOP team included Mark Simo, who wrenched for Marty, and his twin brother, Brian and Jeff Sarwal, and another guy named Jeff Theodosakis. Here's where the story gets even crazier. Although they all loved motocross, they all loved having a good time even more. Overall, they were in their 20s. It was the 80s, and by 83, the LOP thing had run its course, and Marty Moats had gone to Australia. for a few years down there. Was chasing an Australian title as well. With the exception of Ofter, the rest of the group moved to South Florida. The Sakis started dating a girl, not detailing a girl. Anyway, started dating a girl, and they started working on an apparel company that you may recognize the name. It was called No Fear. People started noticing the shorts, and the boys would wear them at the races. They had sold about 30 pair of them. Things started to really catch on. They decided to make 1,000 pair, but they didn't have really enough money to make them. They started raising money any way they could. And at the time, Theo Sadakis' girlfriend was reading a book about an Australian beach style called Life's a Beach. And that's where things started to come along, where the No Fear and the Life's a Beach thing started to catch on as well. By 1984, this had all caught on, and all these guys were really, really rolling in cash. After stringing on a clothesline between some palm trees, they displayed their totally unique-looking shorts everywhere they would go. As luck would have it, Ricky Johnson and Brock Glover happened to just walk by. RJ, being the rebel that he was, thought it was the coolest clothes he had ever seen, and this is where Ricky got involved in this lineup of clothing as well. Anyway, he was riding for Yamaha at the time. Ricky thought it would be a good idea to put on a pair of these Life's a Beach shorts over his race gear. He got the word from the upper crust at Yamaha, and they said if you win the first race, it was Kenny Clark actually, if you win the first moto, you could put the shorts on for the second moto. Ricky did that, and that's where this whole thing really started to catch on. By 1989, the annual sales for Life's a Beach and No Fear was $6.5 million. None of them had really had any business sense. They were sort of undercapitalized, and at the time, some payroll trouble had come along. In addition, a few years earlier, they had done a deal with their childhood friends, Offner, and it began to go sour. The boys had to sell the trademark. Lawrence Offner had to satisfy a bank debt, and the rest, as they say, is history. But that is how Marty Moats and Brock Glover, as well as RJ, got involved with that brand. And there's a second half of this story that I'm going to bring you next week. Okay? Anyway, I want to thank Jeff Kokoski for a very, very interesting story. At least I thought so as well. We often see that Life's a Beach and Ricky with the bad. You'll know about the bad boy thing next week when we get to part 2 of Did You Know? Next up tonight, This Week in Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X, available on your newsstand now, also available online. 1973, as sort of a warm-up for a possible 125 Grand Prix in St. Charles, Missouri, Swedish Husqvarna rider Nils Arne Nilsson won the 125 quote-unquote World Championship in a race otherwise devoid of international talent. Bob Grossi, also of Husqvarna, finished second, while Mickey Boone raced a Suzuki to third. The FIM would actually sanction a 125cc World Championship until 1975. I'm sorry, they wouldn't sanction it until 75. And the U.S. round would end up at Pete Wieder's Mid-Ohio Raceway. It was 1982. It was a race that we had hoped would mark the home win for either one of two Americans at the 250cc FIM Motocross World Championship, and that would be the title contender at the time, Danny Laporte, or it would go to Mike Gura. The race was, of course, at Unadilla, which happens this weekend. It happened at Unadilla. It became historic for another reason. It saw KTM's first major moto win in America. Dutch rider Kees van der Ven emerged with the overall win, marking the first time KTM, or before that, Penton, stood atop the podium in this country. Van der Ven went 3-1 to top the 2-3 Yamaha teenage sensation, Ricky Johnson, and the 4-2 soon-to-be world champion, Danny Laporte, and the 1-6 of Team Honda's David Bailey. Later in that year, Danny Laporte would, of course, go on to become America's 250cc world champion, and that happened 3 weeks after this happened. And what is this? Tomorrow, August 8th, marks 42 years since Brad Lackey won the 500cc World Championship in Edelbrock, Luxembourg. The big news happened over in Luxembourg in the final round of the 1982 500cc Motocross World Championship. Suzuki's Brad Lackey completed his 10-year crusade to become America's first motocross world championship winner by finishing 2-3 in Edelbrock aboard a Stig Peterson-tuned RN82 Works Suzuki with those upside-down forks, compliments of the amazing Steve Simons. Belgium's Andre Romans would take second that day. It marked the first time a U.S. rider was ranked #1 in the world, and he beat Danny Laporte by just 3 weeks. Danny Laporte, 3 weeks later, would take home the 250cc World Championship. Happy anniversary, Bad Brad Lackey. Tomorrow marks 42 years that you won the 500cc National Championship. We're going to take a little break here, hear from our bud, Paul Parkinson Sr. at replicamotorcycleparts.com, and then we'll be back to tell you a little bit more about that and wrap up this week's episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. We do have a winner, too, for the listener appreciation, the viewer appreciation winner, and that'll be coming up in just a minute. Stand by.
Okay, without further ado, let's take a look at these two bikes in action.
As I did last week, and I ran the video of Cherry Maddox. Cherry Maddox that we want to see. You know what? Maybe I'll find it in a second. But right now, let's get cut right over to this. Paul Parkinson Sr., replicamotorcycleparts.com, doing more for the industry than just about anybody I can think of. Yes, you have your fender manufacturers out there. You've got wonderful guys like Chris Carter and so many others. But I'll tell you, Paul Parkinson Sr. has made such a dedicated effort to make things like this. The silencer for the 1973 and 1974 Honda CR250. He's got the chain guides for your 1974, 1975, 1976 KX125s, 250s, and 450s as well. Should I try one more time to bring you the video? Try it one more time? All right, Susie, I'm going to look for it one more time. I'm sorry for you folks at home that think I'm being rather unprofessional. This is a live show, and I have to press all these buttons myself. I try to do the best I can, okay? And you know what else I want to do? Here, let's do this. I don't know why I didn't mention my dear friend, Full Circle. We haven't heard from Full Circle this week. So let's add Full Circle to the stage right now, then we'll get back to the rest of the show.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer's simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. I mentioned in the earlier part of the show when I was talking about the What's It Worth segment, I did, of course, mention Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing, but I didn't want to run the video at that point. Be sure to visit Tom McAllister, Full Circle Racing, and as I mentioned, Paul Parkinson Sr. at replicamotorcycleparts.com. They're making a lot of great stuff there, and there's more to come. If you want to become a show supporter for Vintage Motocross Q&A, please get a hold of me. I'd be happy to get you a T-shirt, some stickers, and some other really cool stuff for just $49.95. We'll put your name up on the board and show that you support Vintage Motocross Q&A. Susie has been mentioning all night that she's making stickers now. They look just like this. In fact, we're going to bounce back over to Susie because she has a winner for our viewer appreciation segment of the show. Do you not, Susie?
I do.
Okay. Why don't you tell us all about that?
Okay, so the viewer appreciation winner this evening is Tim Salmon.
Tim Salmon?
Yeah,
Tim Salmon?
yeah.
Excellent. Tim Salmon, get us out your mailing address. Get us your mailing address. I will get it over to Paul Sneinard, and we will get you a brand new set of grips, compliments of PrestonPettyProducts.com and Paul Sneinard. What else we got coming up here? I told you about $49.95 to become a supporter of the show. We've got the stickers that Susie told you about a little bit earlier. I'll put it on the page tomorrow. I think they're 2 for $6, shipping included. We've got some events coming up as well. Unadilla, the best track, they say the best track in the world, certainly the best track in America. That happens this weekend. If you want to get up there, you might want to swing by and see my dear friends over at the Legends and Heroes display. I think my friend Rich Vasallo will be there, along with Pete Noneman. There'll be a lot of great bikes over there at Unadilla at the Legends and Heroes display. Pomeroy Cup's right around the corner. Happens August 10th and 11th, the Pomeroy Memorial Motocross Track. That is in Titan, Washington, and that's coming up, just in about 5 days. Tennessee Vintage National happens as well, August 9th and 10th. If you're nowhere near Washington, well, maybe you're a little closer to Tennessee, you can get down there and catch a bit of the action there. Oh, my dear friends, the Burnworks, they already got a couple of them behind them. We got Paris done. Verona Oaks done. Glen Helen's coming up October 15th. Get down there to the SoCal MX Classic put on by Scott and Debbie Burnworth. Another race coming up August 17th and 18th, the New York State Vintage Championship. This happens at a track that really has a lot of history at it. There was 500 National, I remember being up there as early as 1975. That happens at Moto Masters. Moto Masters in Mexico, New York. Do we have anything else going on? What is this? Oh, there's something happening right here. Look at this. It's so small I could barely see it. Third annual Chicagoland Vintage Antique Motorcycle Show. That happens on August 11th. I'll have it posted on the page. The print is too small. I simply cannot see it. That wraps it up for tonight's Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. Congratulations to Tim Salmon on winning a set of grips. Congratulations to Lee Miller. Surprised me. Excellent. You are certainly a motocross historian. Coming up with Sten London in 1959 on the Leto. You know who's been laying here all night like a bump on a log waiting for the show to end? That's right, Gino. Gino, come over here, you little slug. Oh, okay. There he is, the Gino monster. I love this dog so much. That wraps it up for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing the show. Susie, baby, I love you. And we'll see you all next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A.